welcome back to Your Hour. I'm being joined now by Jamie Whitfield, who is a recovering addict who is almost, are you a year clean?
Not yet.
Not yet, but pretty close.
Yes.
Pretty close. And Jamie, she has a YouTube channel called Recovery Matters, and I really encourage people to visit that YouTube channel because there's several videos on it already.
30 to be exact.
30? Very cool. But the thing about Jamie that I admire so much is that she is so honest and she's so open about her own life and her own experiences. And she wants others to benefit from her experiences and reaches out to the general population so that she can offer her help if they want to take it. And I really think that's commendable because not everybody is that open.
No, thank you very much. And so today what I would like to share and just kind of educate people about is, recovery is one thing, but there's also relapse, and that is part of some people's story. Thankfully and gratefully, it's not my story, but it's part of my reality as well if I'm not careful. Mm-hmm. And so, relapse is it's not just the part of just using. There's actually a process, and there's 11 steps. There's 12 steps to a recovery program, and there's 11 steps to relapse. And the process too consists of the emotional, the mental, and then the physical part of relapse. And so basically people just get to a point where they just throw out everything that they've learned in recovery. And it's just not from one problem. It starts, the accumulated problems that just build up that are unprocessed that allow people just to kind of give up.
Because they don't have the tools.
Right.
Yeah.
Or they may have the tools, but they just feel like your life is so dysfunctional and so chaotic that, that they feel like, it's our addict mind talking to us in our own voice that just tells us this recovery is not working. It says several things, mm-hmm. And sometimes you start believing that if you're not able to pick up the phone and not use, mm-hmm. Utilize, whatever fellowship you choose to attend. And
that's why having a sponsor is important.
Very important. And so I was just going to go over a couple of the steps that lead people down to that. And the first one is that unhealthy emotions, not being able to process things, stuffing it in. That's something I do not take part in anymore. I tend to reach out to you, my sponsor, whoever will listen, because I know that stuffing my problems keep me sick, and I don't want to be sick, Step two is the denial, convincing yourself that everything's okay and it's not.
It won't matter.
No.
It won't matter if I do it just this once.
And so number three is that compulsive behaviors. You start engaging in them compulsive old behaviors versus your recovery, what you know to have in recovery, usually in your tools. And four is them triggers. You start getting triggered by seeing them people, places, and things that are triggers for you and allow you to start wanting to, your brain is starting to crave things. Uh-huh. And then number five is that interior chaos, like mentally your thinking is distorted, you're trying to semi go back to that insane state that you were in when you were using, but you haven't picked up yet. This is just a mind battle that your mind is not helping you at all. And then that exterior turmoil, the fights with the family, the thinking that your fellowship and program isn't working for you, and thinking that they're against you, that starts to be another problem. And then finally that loss of control. You give up. You just feel like that everything is so dysfunctional in your recovery life that you have no other choice you have is but to use. And then that addictive thinking starts coming back, mm-hmm. and you start using them defense mechanisms, and they're just like in full force, So by this point, if you're not reaching out to someone, trying to get some help, you're in trouble,
Yeah.
you know. And then we got the high risk situations, going to see them old people, places, and things, thinking you can sit amongst people that are using and thinking that you're not, or even calling your dealer and saying hi, you know, would be
I just wanted to see how things were
yeah,
going.
you know, that is, and it's, people do that,
Yeah.
you know, and that's putting yourself in that high risk situation where you're well on your way, you know.
Uh-huh.
And so then that relapse happens,
Yeah.
you know, and at the end, you know, the aftermath of a relapse usually is it goes down two paths. The first path, you know, people go through, and not all, some, I'm just speaking, they learn from their mistakes, you know, they just pick up the pieces, they get back into recovery, they, you know, reach out to their sponsor or get one if they didn't have one, and they start going to their fellowship of their choosing and just start, you know, going back in that new way of life. You know, they made a mistake, okay, but sometimes you will find that people are held on this second path that continue to use that guilt and shame does not allow them to go back to the fellowship. You know, it just allows them to continue to use that excuse to use because they feel so guilty and they're so ashamed of what they've done. They can't come back.
Yeah, I'm so far gone. You
Yeah.
can't save me.
Yeah. And so, and usually, you know, we have been taught in our literature there's only three options: jails, institutions, or death. You know, and for people
Don't
that
like any of those.
No, not me either. And people that continue to use and don't come back to the fellowship, you know, or just, you know, the abstinence part of not using drugs, you know, there's only three options, and it might not happen right away. Some people do it for years and years, but eventually, you know, by using drugs, it causes more complications to your health, your mental state,
absolutely.
you know what I
Yeah.
mean? There's just so many things, you know, financially, you know, so eventually them three options are only going to be your three choices. And so that's just really what I wanted to, you know, put out there, because, you know, I always talk about recovery and this, but I don't speak about too much of the relapse prevention part of it and the steps of relapse. You know, there's that, you know, emotional, mental, and physical part of it. And these steps, you know, just basically talked about every section of that process.
Well, and it's important to know that because a lot of people, you and I had this discussion before the show. Your brain can run amok.
Yes.
If you let it, and
Yes.
it can tell you all kinds of things. It's like the devil sitting on the shoulder,
Yes.
telling you, "Oh, it won't matter. Just just this once. It's okay." And you know that we have to take control of the way we
Yes.
think and the way we.
Yes, and you just have to surrender. You know, you just have to surrender and know that, you know, we are powerless over our addiction, and our lives did become very unmanageable.
Thanks for joining us, Brittany.
That went quick.
Cool. I did. It went really quick.
Oh, that was really great.